Bonjour and welcome, viewers and students, to Let's Speak French, Parlons Français. These lessons on basic French are short and easy, and if you follow the program regularly, I can guarantee you that very soon you will be able to speak and understand French quite easily. In the previous class, we continued with the special sounds that are characteristic of the French language. In today's class, we are going to learn the two different concepts, and they are both related to one another. The first one is the concept of silent letters that exist in the French language. And the second concept that we will learn in today's class is called liaison in French. You must have heard that French is a difficult language to learn. Well, you are partly right. French is tricky because the spelling does not match its pronunciation. What I mean is, there are lots of letters that are written but not pronounced. The inverse is true as well. So you have lots of letters which are not written but pronounced. But do not worry. In this lesson, I will explain to you what a liaison is and what the silent letters are. And once you understand these two concepts, French won't be so difficult anymore. Let us begin with the concept of silent letters. The silent letters are called les lettres muettes in French. In French, the silent letters can be categorized into three groups. Group 1, E muet. Group 2, H muet or H aspiré. Group 3, consonant at the end of a word. Let me first explain the E muet or the mute E. When the letter E takes an accent, it is always pronounced. But an E without accent can either be silent or pronounced, depending on its position. An E at the end of a word is nearly always silent. For example, in the words le, tomate, téléphone, bibliothèque. I'll again repeat the words le, tomate, téléphone and bibliothèque. As you see, each of these four letters end with the letter E, and each time the letter E is silent. So you pronounce the words as though the final E were not there. I'll again repeat the words le, tomate, téléphone and bibliothèque. Next, let us look at the H. This letter is always silent, but there are two different types of H in French. The first type of H is called H muet or mute H, and the second is known as H aspiré or aspirate H. Since the H is always silent, any word that begins with this letter is pronounced as if it began with a vowel. We will take up the letter H again and examine it in detail in the next section, which deals with liaison. I'll show you a few words that begin with H so that you have an idea on how to pronounce the word by skipping over the letter H. For example, homme, hiver, héros, huit. I'll again repeat the words homme, hiver, héros, huit. As you can see, in these four words, we have only pronounced what is highlighted in red. The letter H has been omitted from the pronunciation. And the third group of silent letters is the consonant at the end of a word. The basic rule of French pronunciation is that the final consonant is not pronounced. but there are lots of exceptions. For a more detailed explanation, please refer to the notes. So in French, there are 6 consonants that are usually silent when placed at the end of a word. But as I just said, there are exceptions. So at times, these 6 consonants are pronounced even when they are placed at the end of a word. These 6 consonants are D, P, S, T, X, and Z. I'll show you a few examples where these 6 letters are once silent and once pronounced. For example, trois, bus, trois, bus. The letter S in trois is silent, but the S in bus is pronounced. I'll again repeat the words. Trois, bus. The letter S in trois is silent, but the S in bus is pronounced. Petit, huit. Petit, huit. The final T in petit is silent, but the T in huit is pronounced. I'll again repeat the words. Petit, huit. The final T in petit is silent, but the T in huit is pronounced. De and these. De and these. The X in de is silent, but the X in these is pronounced. I'll again repeat the words. De and these. The X in de is silent, but the X in these is pronounced. Riz and gaz. Riz and gaz. The Z in riz is silent, but the Z in gaz is pronounced. I'll again repeat the words. Riz and gaz. The Z in riz is silent, but the Z in gaz is pronounced. Similarly, there are 9 consonants that are usually pronounced at the end of a word, but here again there are exceptions to the rule. So you have words which end with these 9 letters, but they are silent. These 9 letters are B, C, F, K, L, M, Q, and R. Again, I'll show you a few examples of some of these 9 letters that are once pronounced and once silent. For example, avec, estomac. Avec, estomac. The C in avec is pronounced, but the C in estomac is silent. I'll again repeat the words. Avec, estomac. The C in avec is pronounced, but the C in estomac is silent. Chef and nerf. Chef and nerf. The F in chef is pronounced, but the F in nerf is silent. I'll again repeat the words. Chef and nerf. The F in chef is pronounced, but the F in nerf is silent. Avril, gentil. Avril, gentil. The L in avril is pronounced, but the L in gentil is silent. I'll again repeat the words. Avril, gentil. The L in avril is pronounced, but the L in gentil is silent. Minimum, non. Minimum, non. The M in minimum is pronounced, but the M in non is silent. Before we move on to the next section of this lesson, let me summarize the concept of silent letters. There are three groups of letters that are silent. However, there are lots of exceptions, and this makes it difficult to remember when a letter is pronounced and when it is not pronounced. Since the concept of silent letters is related to liaison, we will come back to these silent letters in the next section. In this section, we will learn about the liaison. A liaison is a concept typical of spoken French that occurs when a word beginning with a vowel follows immediately after a word that ends with a consonant. So when you have such a grammatical situation, the normally silent consonant at the end of the first word is pronounced at the beginning of the second word. Let me give you an example. Un and ami. Ami means friend. The word un is an article that indicates gender in French. We will learn all about gender in the second module of the next unit. So the word un, which precedes ami, ends with the consonant n, which is silent. The second word ami begins with a vowel. So we have a set of words where the first word ends with a silent consonant and the second word begins with a vowel. In this case, the concept of liaison is applicable. The letter N of the word un becomes pronounced and the N sound gets transferred onto the word beginning with a vowel. So when the two words are read together, they would sound like an ami and not as un ami. The n sound gets transferred onto ami and creates the sound nami. When the word ami is isolated and read separately, it is pronounced as ami. But since it follows the word un, the liaison changes the pronunciation from ami to nami. Let me give you another example of liaison with the same word. Deux amis. Deux means two. So these two words would mean two friends. Generally, the letter X in the word deux is silent. But because the word ami follows immediately after the X becomes pronounced. So the two words would be read as deux amis and not as deux amis. Let me summarize the concept of liaison again. The two sets of words would be read as un ami and deux amis because the first words un and deux end with a consonant that is silent and the second words begin with a vowel. In such situations, the silent consonant becomes pronounced and its sound gets transferred to the next word. The concept of liaison is applicable in various grammatical situations, but we will learn just a few of these. There are many rules as to when you should or should not do a liaison. In general, this concept can be divided into three categories. Liaison obligatoire, which means required liaison. Liaison facultative, which means optional liaison. And liaison interdite, which means forbidden liaison. We will not examine each category here. If you are interested in a more detailed list of liaison, please refer to the notes. Let us look at a few examples of liaison obligatoire. This category contains liaison that are compulsory, such as a liaison after articles, pronouns and adjectives. Let me illustrate with a few examples. Mon ami is pronounced as mon ami, which means my friend. I'll again repeat. Mon ami is pronounced as mon ami, which means my friend. Nous avons is pronounced as nous avons, which means we have. I'll again repeat. Nous avons is pronounced as nous avons, which means we have. Trois amis is pronounced as trois amis, which means three friends. I'll again repeat. Trois amis is pronounced as trois amis, which means three friends. Another important grammatical situation where the liaison occurs is with the letter H. In the first section of this lesson, we learned that the letter H is silent. We also learned that there are two types of letter H, the H muet or the mute H and the H aspiré or the aspirate H. Since the H is silent, it is possible to have a liaison, but only in the case of an H muet or a mute H. An H aspiré may be silent, but it acts as a consonant, which means a liaison cannot be done. Let me illustrate this concept with two examples, de homme and de héros. Homme means men and héros means heroes. The H in homme is an H muet, which means it allows a liaison. So the X in the word de, which is normally silent, becomes pronounced, and this word is read as deux hommes. The H in héros is an H aspiré, which means it acts as a consonant. In this case, the liaison must not be done. So these are the two distinct words which are pronounced as de héros. I'll again repeat the words de héros. If you do a liaison, you will distort the meaning in this case. Les héros will become les zéros, which means the heroes become the zeros. Before we end the lesson, let me give you one example of a liaison interdite. What is meant by a forbidden liaison is that grammatically a liaison should be made, but due to some reason the liaison is forbidden. We see this with the word et, which means and. 21. This word is pronounced as 21 and not as 21. The liaison is made between 20 and et, but not between et and un. Before we end, let us revise what we learned today. Here is an exercise in which we will practice how to pronounce words that contain silent letters or require a liaison. You can repeat after me. 21. 21. 21 means 21. Please note the liaison occurs only between 20 and et. You never make a liaison after the word et. Vieux hôtel. Vieux hôtel. Vieux hôtel means old hotels. Bon appétit. Bon appétit. Bon appétit is an expression that means enjoy your meal. Des héros. Des héros. Des héros means heroes. Belles histoires. Belles histoires. Belles histoires means beautiful stories. Mes idées. Mes idées. Mes idées means my ideas. Petit enfant. Petit enfant. Petit enfant means small child. Très haut. Très haut. Très haut means very high. So here we come to the end of our fourth class, which focused on silent letters and the concept of liaison. Let me summarize today's lesson in a few words. This lesson was divided into 3 parts. The first part was about the silent letters in French. We learned that the silent letters could be categorized into 3 groups and that there were 2 types of letter H. Although both are silent, the H aspiré acts as a consonant and does not allow a liaison. The second part of the lesson focused on liaison. This concept, which is typical of the French language, occurs only in spoken French. We learned the different grammatical situations that require a liaison. And finally, in the third section, we revised today's lesson. We learnt a few new words and phrases that contain silent letters and liaison. I hope you enjoyed today's session. Our next class will be on numbers. We'll learn how to count from 0 to 100 and we'll also see how these numbers are written. I'll also show you how to ask someone their age and reply to the question. Hope to see you in the next class. Thank you. À bientôt. See you soon.